Harihi Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastoma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so now we've now met the Gandharva Angaraparna, and so the Pandavas then walking down to the in their travels. Now they've come to the Ganga and they're going to cross the Ganga. They're looking for a nice a proper place, a shallow place, so they're walking along the bank. They happen to come to the place where Angaraparna is there with his wife, and so then Angaraparna comes out and he's upset because he's making the point that it's humans aren't supposed to be using the river at night. That's the time for the Gandharvas. And so then he's creating some problems. So then that starts a fight. Arjuna easily defeats him with a celestial weapon, but he uses the weapon just enough to destroy his chariot and make him unconscious. And he drags him over to Yudhishthir. Then Angaraparna's wife comes out of the water and begs for his protection, because then otherwise how will she be taken care of? And so then when he comes to consciousness, Yudhishthir points out that he's free to go, because one, he's unconscious, you can't disturb him. He's without weapons. He's being protected by a woman, So he's been vanquished in battle, so there's no reason to kill him. And so then he's very happy with that, and to how the dealings went. In other words, these dealings are so nice that even though they're in pastimes, the Gandharvas, who are in the higher realms, they're impressed, they're pleased. So now he's willing to call himself Dhagarata instead of Chittarata. He's Angaraparna, but he's also a name. He's known as Chittarata because he who has the very brilliant chariot. But now he's saying, I am the one of the burnt chariot, because somehow or another the dealings between the prowess of Arjuna, how they dealt, how he defeated him, how Yudhishthir was very kind to him, all was very nice. So then he's comfortable with that as something, because they'll say, how is that? How you're the burnt chariot? Then he can tell the story, and by this people will be inspired. They'll be impressed. It gives them an example to work for. In other words, if in a fight you only fight how much is necessary, you don't fight beyond that. You defeat someone, then you have to, honor their position. Like that, women are there. They have to be honored and protected. So many religious things came out of this, even though his original point is that they're behaving irreligiously. Then he sees how they deal. Then he understands, no, these are very religious people. So then he says he wants to offer him two things: these special horses, and this knowledge known as chakshushi. Yes, will give you the ability to see anything within the three worlds, along with that thing's intrinsic nature. This knowledge gives. This is the knowledge that gives the Gandharvas the powers that make them superior to men. Because if you know the intrinsic nature of something, how it works, you can actually work with it. If you don't understand it, then there'll be so many problems that'll come up with it. But you understand how it works, then you work with something very, very properly. You see its strengths, you see its weaknesses. So the Vedic literature, excuse me, it's all about understanding what is the nature of something and how that nature relates to Krishna and how it relates to you in your relationship with Krishna. Or if it does. Means if it relates to Krishna, this is how it's working, but does it relate to you? So if it's not within the context of your duty, you have that knowledge, but you don't act upon it. And if you do have, it is within your duty and it's appropriate time, place, and circumstance for that, then you apply it. So this element of understanding the intrinsic nature in something, that's a standard Vedic way of perception, because you're using the descending process of knowledge. You hear from authority. So therefore, now you know what the nature is. Now if you apply that, see it, and then use it. Otherwise, if we just externally look at things, then we won't necessarily be very good at what we do. But if we see the nature of it, that's what makes the difference between someone who can't work with it, someone who can work with it, and someone who actually is inspired in how they can work with it. So then that was the one. Then the other, Angaraparna waved his hand towards the riverbank, and the Pandavas saw there a group of lustrous white steeds. These are the horses I wish to give you. They will go anywhere at their owner's will. They are said to be a portion of Indra's thunderbolt and will always unfailingly fulfill your desire. Right? So they're very special horses, because horses, you would want them to go wherever you want to go, but horses don't always do that. You're running along, you want to go something, they'll stop. Something scares them, they stop. There's a branch, and then they knock you off the horse, or you have to jump over something, they won't go. Like this. So the thing is that one is they can go whatever, and at the same time it appears they can go wherever. Since they're celestial horses, they can go anywhere within the universe. So that makes them very, very special. And a portion of Indra's thunderbolt, so that means they're very powerful. They're not going to be easily defeated. Arjuna said, O Gandharva, if you desire to give your knowledge and these horses in return for your life, then I will not accept them. Right? Because it means, he did this, it's not a business deal. It was my duty to release you on my brother's order. I cannot accept charity, for that is never the duty of the ruling class. So as Kshatriyas, they don't accept charity. That's not how they maintain themselves. So you see is that when they were living in Ekachakra, then they were living as Brahmins, so they performed the duties as Brahmins. But now they're going, and then they've been challenged, so now they're dealing as Kshatriyas. So as Kshatriyas, it's not that you act as a Kshatriya, I'm the controller here, and that at the same time, then I switch back to a Brahmin, I get the charity and all those benefits and all that, and I don't really have the responsibility here when things go bad, but then when there's an opportunity for authority, then we're the Kshatriya. Like that. No, you have to take, so in this condition, fighting with Angaraparna, they're Kshatriyas, so they have to deal in that way. And we see is that at this point, they're still working as Brahmins, as hiding, but the point is, since they dealt with Angaraparna, and it's night, no one else is there, so they're dealing as Kshatriyas. Angaraparna smiled again, right? So he's just smiling off it, because how they've been dealing, because otherwise, who wouldn't want that knowledge and these horses? And he's not accepting it because it's just not his duty, like that. So that shows that commitment to duty. That's what makes it special. That's what makes the Pandavas. That's what makes the story. That's why people want to hear the Mahabharata, because of the qualities of the Pandavas. But no one wants to hear because they want to hear, what's Duryodhana up to? What politics is he doing? No, they want to know what the Pandavas are doing. And then his politics, when you see it next to, juxtaposition to, how the Pandavas' good qualities and their bad qualities. Like in the beginning of the Mahabharata, then there's a portion there where it says that Yudhishthira is like a tree, a pious tree that gives all the fruits, and then it mentions what are the different parts of the tree, and Bhima's this and that and so many things. And then you have an impious tree, that's Duryodhana, So then all the flowers and fruits are all sinful activities, or envy, lust, all these things, while the other is like this. So that's why he's smiling again. This need not be charity, O best of the Bharat race. I desire to learn from you how to throw the fire weapon, which you used to overpower me. So it could have been just he wants to make friendship, and so I just want to give it as a friend. I'd like to be your friend, and I'd like to give you something. Or he's saying, I'd like to know how you use this weapon, because we see the line it came down from Bharadwaj and then down to Drona and now to Arjuna. So Angaraparna doesn't have this. And you see, he's such a powerful and well-respected Gandharva in the universe. He's a friend of Kuvera. Kuvera is one of the 8 main demigods that kind of control the universe, and he's one of his best friends. So that puts him in a very special position. So he doesn't know this. So he wants to learn this, and so naturally then, having learned this, then he wants to give some kind of a dakshin. Arjuna agreed to this exchange, but said he first wanted to know why the Gandharva had challenged him, right? Because they're just walking about, why did he do this? Why did he challenge him and his brothers, although they were all virtuous men? Learned in the Vedas and born in a noble line of kings, right? So if he has this chakshusha, he would have known this. So then why? Why is, because otherwise if he knew it was just Brahmins, he would have just said, hey, you Brahmins aren't supposed to be down here, you leave, this is the time for the Gandharvas. The Brahmins would have, oh, okay, yeah. But the way he did, he challenged because he knows the Kshatriyas. So now he'll explain. The Gandharva replied, listen, Arjuna, I have heard from Narada Rishi of your ancestors' great accomplishments. I also know your fathers personally because Dharma, Vayu, Indra, the Ashwinis, and even Pandu all reside in heaven. Right, so they're all in heaven, and Pandu also is there. So he's seen them and heard of them. I knew that you are high-souled, virtuous, powerful, and obedient to your vows. Right? So he knows all this. That's why he so through his knowledge, this chakshushi that the Gandharvas had, he knows all this. But he says, I nevertheless censured you, right? All right, so then what is this? It says, no man possessed of strength and arms ought to tolerate a confrontation in front of his wife. I was overpowered by wrath. Right? So it's also putting on is that you have the confrontation, but at the same time as you have this element of they're virtuous in that, but you do have this time of not coming and all that down to the Ganga and that. So anything that's improper, you shouldn't tolerate that in front of the women. Because then one is that if you don't establish the proper things in front of the women, when it's appropriate, you're not just showing off. It means it's just, this is the proper dharma. Then how are they going to respect you for being someone who, is stable and fixed in the religious principles? Because by nature, women are very religious. So if the man is not establishing a religious environment, where's the woman going to function? Because she functions in a religious environment. So he then, therefore, he couldn't deal in that way. So that was why he originally said something. And because then Arjuna responded the way he did, then, it's another thing. You have to step forward. You have to be the man. Because if you're a wimp, then the woman thinks, oh, my husband's a wimp. And so how will he take care? How will he be able to do things nicely? Angaraparna went on to explain why Arjuna had been able to defeat him, although he was a celestial. Because you have been observing a vow of celibacy, your power became insurmountable. If a warrior engaged in satisfying his desires fights with the Gandharvas at night, he will not escape with his life, because we have to remember, this is nighttime. If it was daytime, okay, then there's some point. But like the Gandharvas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, they become more powerful at night. That's why they were saying to Bhima that you have to be careful the night and the twilights. Especially the twilights, then like that. So then, you have to be able, with dealing with, who was that? That was Hidimba. That you should kill him now, otherwise it's going to go into a time when they become more powerful. So, but he's saying because they were living as Brahmins and all that, and, they've graduated from the Gurukuls, so technically they're still brahmacharis. The Snatakas, they've graduated, but they're still brahmacharis, they're not married yet. So they've been controlling their senses, and because of that vow, that's more powerful. So of all the vratas, you could say of the pious vratas, the celibacy is the most powerful. Like someone just being a brahmachari, celibate their whole life, properly following brahmacharya, at the end of this life, he'll just automatically go to Brahmaloka. He hasn't done any big yagyas and big this and that. He's been a brahmachari. Just that, it'll take him to Brahmaloka. Otherwise, these big yogis and others, and you have to be on the level like Prajapatis to get there, but a brahmachari gets. So that's what he's pointing out. It's just that strength is there. Agaraparna said that even a warrior who is not celibate could defeat a powerful enemy if accompanied by a Brahmin priest. right? Because they don't have. The Gandharva concluded, men with learned and self-controlled priests can conquer the earth and acquire very good fortune, finally attaining even heaven itself. Therefore, a descendant of Tapati, you should seek out a qualified priest as your guide. Right, so now, here's Kshatriyas. Now, if they're pious, they're good, the families, everything's perfect. Right, and you see their power because they're but where's the Brahmin? Kshatriyas have to follow Brahmins. Right, when they walk, Kshatriyas walk, there's a Brahmin in front. They follow the Brahmin. You know, like that. In battle, of course, the Kshatriya goes out first, but that's their place. It's not the Brahmin's place. But when they're walking, when they're going, when they're doing things, they follow the Brahmins. You know, in the court, the Brahmins are there. The decision to be made, they ask the Brahmins what is their opinion, then they make a decision. Right? It's not that what the Brahmins say and that's what you do. They say what's the thing, you have to analyze it and make your own decision. So you have to follow the Brahmins. You know, when you move, when you're walking, there should be a Brahmin in front, like that. So Arjuna was listening carefully. He was curious that Angaraparna addressed him as a descendant of Tapati. He asked, as the sons of Kunti, we are known as the Kaunteyas. Why did you address us at Tapatyas? I have not heard this before. Right, because they're yada, they're what do you call it? In the Kurus and so many. So they've heard so many names of great persons in their line, but he's never heard this aspect of Tapati. So he's asking. It was a long story. Angaraparna invited the brothers to sit comfortably on the riverbank while he recited the history of their distant ancestor, Tapati, daughter of the sun god. Right, so that's the thing you see with the Brahmins or the Kshatriyas and like that. If they're in that qualified position, they fought. They don't have any bad feelings because they do. He defeated him in a fair battle. They dealt properly. So now they'll be very good friends. You even see when Jarasandha and Bhima and Krishna are there, they're fighting, and Arjuna, then during the day they fight, but when it's sundown, then they go take their bath, dress nicely, then he's their guest of Jarasandha. And then they sleep and that. In the morning they get up, do their rituals and all that, chant their mantras, take their bath, all these things. Then again, back to work, wrestling all day, right? So we see her. So he sits down here, so he'll be sitting there, his wife will be there, they'll tell all the nice stories. Tapati had descended from the heavens and married Samvarana, an early king in the Pandavas line. The Gandharva narrated this history, along with many other incidental stories. He spoke for much of the night, and the enthralled brothers could see the first faint glow of dawn when he had finished his narration. Right? So, as you see when we go through here, there'll be many instances like this where it says some stories being told. But what's interesting, what's nice about this rendition of the Mahabharata is that it's just the story of the Pandavas throughout. And then all other stories are in connection, because that's the way it is in the Mahabharata. But what happens is there's so much introduction to it, and then like this story goes on for so many chapters. So many little details and this, and like it says, they're going the whole night. And so Mahabharata doesn't need to leave out. It's so big, it doesn't have to leave out the details. And so, but it'll be things on Dharma and religion and all that. But in that, sometimes you forget about the Pandavas, Krishna, devotional service, and that. Because if you have that, then these other aspects of religion have meaning. Right? It's just like Krishna, he deals properly with his energies. So that's why then, because you have that masculine and feminine principle, then the husband has to deal in such a way properly with the wife as an energy. Right? She represents the energy. She represents the Lord. So then, in this way, he has to deal properly. It's his duty, like that. So whenever you're doing these kind of things, even though you say, okay, you can control the situation, it actually puts the wife in the central position. And why is that? Because that's how you deal with Krishna's energies. You see the energies in connection with Krishna. So if he's representing, how does he deal so that his wife is connected with Krishna? So that's the thing. So many of these stories. So he's he's told it in such a way that you get these nice, it keeps it centered on the Pandavas. Arjuna then said to him, "O Gandharva, you know everything, can see everything by your divine sight," right? Because he said that he has that shushi. "Please tell us where we can find a Brahmin who knows the Vedas and can become our priest." Right? Because otherwise, how do they find? They're out in the forest. They don't, because generally they would ask Vidura, Bhishma would arrange, these kind of things like that. They already have their priests in the palace. So then, because he can see all things everywhere, then, okay, looking for a priest, okay, here's a priest. And then he can tell them, here. Angaraparna replied that not far from there was a forest ashram called Utkachaka. A Brahmin named Domya, the younger brother of the famous Rishi Devala, resided there. Like, in the Gita, he says about Devala and all these great rishis. So his younger brother is Domya. So Domya is not just a Brahmin. He's very, elevated, within even the universal hierarchy of Brahmins. They should approach him and ask that he become their preceptor. Seeing the Gandharva's friendship towards them and grateful for his advice, Arjuna gave him the mantra by which he could call the Agneyastra. Right, because he wants to see that he has the proper attitude and all that. Otherwise, you don't give a weapon to somebody and then walk off and have them use it on you or use it improperly. So the Gandharva is very pleased with their behavior. He wants to give something and give them nice instructions and things like that. And Arjuna then is willing to do if he sees his character and how the mood and everything is. In return, Angaraparna again offered him the horses. Arjuna replied, "I will not take anything from you now." Right? These 4 Brahmins are walking around with celestial horses. People aren't going to notice that one. "I do not desire your knowledge, and we cannot take the horses at present. O best of the Gandharvas, your friendship is sufficient." Right? He doesn't need that kind of knowledge because they're dependent on Krishna. And Krishna will reveal. So they have their dharma, they perform their duties, and things are revealed as it goes. That's the fun part of human pastimes. See, for the Gandharvas and the demigods and all that, that's the whole draw, is at all these special powers. But for the human pastimes, that's why Krishna likes to come as human. You don't worry about all these mystical things. You just perform your duties, and as it unfolds, it adjusts and everything like that. So you're not claiming this great control. You're just dealing with whatever the position is according to what happens at the time. This comes up, this is what you do. It changes, you do that. That makes for the variety, makes for the taste and everything like that. So you see, as Krishna does like that, his associates do like that. So they're not worried about these mystic powers and everything. "O best of the Gandharvas, your friendship is sufficient," right? So that they're friends, so then they'll meet again anytime like that. And we'll see that Angaraparna, at least twice, he comes along and helps like that. Once on his own, and other times then they spend time together and like that. So then Arjuna said, "Perhaps if time comes when we need these steeds, we shall then take them." Right? So maybe in the future, if they're reinstated, they're back on the throne, they need the horses, then they'll use. Angaraparna and the Pandavas saluted one another respectfully and took their leave. The Gandharva and his wife disappeared into the sky, leaving the Pandavas to continue on their journey. Right? So they were sitting there, Gandharva with his wife, Pandavas there with their mother, and so it was a nice little situation. After Angaraparna left, the Pandavas went north along the bank of the Ganges, towards where the Gandharva had indicated they would find Domya's ashram, because the ashrams are generally on the river. Because you go down every morning, take your bath in the Ganga, use the Ganga water for your pujas and everything like that. So it's just standard that ashrams will be along the bank of auspicious rivers. The sun had risen, and they could now see many rishis bathing in the river, wearing a single piece of cloth and with their matted locks tied in knots on their head. Right? Because they're rishis. They just wear a single piece of cloth. They don't need more. So they don't need more for keeping warm, because by their Brahma tejas, they keep themselves warm. Even before brahmacharis, Prabhupada mentioned they would just sleep straight on the ground. Right? The house is made with mud and cow dung and like this. So they would just sleep straight on the ground. and in the winter, they wouldn't have a problem like that. So they had their deer skin, and they were good. So these sages, then they just have a single cloth and that, and so then it's very simple. You wash it, you dry it, you have your cloth. Life is very simple. You spend your time doing so many other things. And their locks are tied up on their heads, so even though they have matted locks, they don't have it out, they tie it up. Because the idea is that, keep the hair out of the way, so you can do different things. It's not for show or looks, it just happens. They may look really, like real sadhus and stuff like that. But they're not doing it for that. The brothers could hear the sages reciting sacred hymns from the Vedas, some in praise of the sun god Surya, some worshipping Shiva, the mighty destroyer, and others praying to the supremely powerful Lord Vishnu. The Pandavas took their own baths in the Ganges. Using the sacred clay from the riverbank, they daubed their bodies with markings that showed them to be Vaishnavas, devotees of Vishnu. Because in the Ganga, you'll have a lot of sand, but here and there you'll have this really super smooth clay. Just has, it's just nothing in it, just pure clay. Very nice in that. You move around, you can catch it sometimes. And so with that, they can put on nice tilak and that. And we also see in Chaitanya Leela that Raghava Pandit and his, I think it's his family, they would cook. One preparation they made for Lord Chaitanya, sweets from this clay. So you take the clay, you mix it with some water so you can strain it through a cloth, take out if there is any little sand and all that. So it's just the pure mud. And then you put that with sugar and cook it until it cooks down and you make it into a laddu. And they keep a long time and all that, and they're very nice. So the mud, if it's cooked and that, and you put, like this, they have the sugar in that, then you could eat it and it'll be good for you. But if you just take earth straight and eat it, then it's bad for your eyes, like that. Kunti entered the water fully clothed and then changed her dress in a secluded place. She thought constantly of Krishna, praying that he would help them throughout their difficulties. Right? So the men then, in this case, then, the public, they just would go to the water. It means they had their one piece of cloth come down, so they go in their kopans, wash the cloth, put it on the bank, take their bath, do all their mantras and this and that. Then cloth dries, they put that back on and all that. And but Kunti Devi, she would go with all her clothes on, because it's public. If it's a private place, then they could take the clothes off and bathe, like we see with Krishna and the gopis. The gopis then were doing the Katyayana Vrata. It was a place that only the women went, so then they'd take off the clothes and put them. Or we see with Devayani and Sarmishta in the pastime with Yayati. There's a place where only women go, and so no one else goes there. So then they'll bathe like that. But since this is a place where all the sages, then she'll wear the clothes. And they know how to do everything and all that properly. And then how to then change, a secluded place, how to change the clothes, even though you have the wet clothes, how to put on the dry clothes. It's an art. So previously all the ladies would know these things, and then it was very, very comfortable. She thought constantly of Krishna, praying that he would help them through their difficulties. Right? So they're always absorbed in Krishna. You see they act as Vaishnavas and mark their bodies as Vaishnavas, and they're always thinking of Krishna. The sages told the brothers where to find Domya's hermitage. They then approached Domya and fell at his feet. Yudhishthira said, "O greatly learned one, we are Pandu's sons. Traveling with our mother Kunti, on the Gandharva's advice we seek your shelter. Please become our guide and protector. We are your servants." Right? So they're coming to this person to be the preceptor. They're very straightforward, who they are and all that. It means others, they're hiding their identity. But, the Gandharvas know, anybody from the higher planet, they all know who they are. And they're not involved with local politics, so it won't matter. Even the whole heavenly planets know who they are. They're not going to tell Duryodhana, And so then, and at the same time, these sages are great sages, and they're Brahmins, and so they don't get involved in these political things either. So it's not that they start gossip and all that. So if he didn't accept and he knew, it wouldn't cause any problem for them. But, they've approached, they're the proper, the attitude's proper, they've come on based on recommendation and authority of the Gandharva. The effulgent Domya smiled and bade them be seated. His disciples brought them offerings of wild fruits and waters, right? So he has an ashram, so he has many students. As he looked upon the 5 young princes and gentle Kunti, the rishi felt affection arise in his heart. He could see that they worshiped Vishnu, his own deity. And this too attracted him, right? Because if they had been of some other, okay, you teach and all this, but, because then you can teach more. You're a Vaishnava, and it's not a Vaishnava, and then you can teach nicely. But if you're a Vaishnava, they're a Shaivite, you can teach some basic things, but you can't teach actually the higher levels of what's above that position, that realization of Shiva. He therefore consented to be their priest. The Pandavas were overjoyed and felt as if their wealth and kingdom had already been regained, and Draupadi won. Right? Because as it said, okay. So he's pointing out is that you have the Brahman, then everything becomes like how you say, men with learned and self-controlled priests can conquer the earth and acquire good fortune, finally attaining even heaven itself. Right? Because the general thing, it just means heaven means you attain the realm of amara, of deathlessness. So the heavenly planets appear to be deathless, you just live a long time. Then you have the Brahma Jyoti, so merging into that, that's also, and you could say deathless, but you're only there for a certain amount of time. Here it's a long time, and when you're there and on that, how you say, cosmic time, it's not very long. It's only when you go back to Godhead, that's deathless. So anytime you see in the scriptures it talks about attaining heaven by doing this, you just do that same thing to please Krishna and go back to Godhead. Draupadi then formally accepted them as disciples by initiating them with Vedic mantras. Right? So now he's accepted them as their priest. The many sages in Daumia's ashram offered the princes their blessings. Seeing such godlike boys, the rishis felt that the brothers, by their own accomplishments, would soon become rulers of the earth. Right? So it wasn't by someone else, like Duryodhana, by other arrangements that they're there. Pandu then, put the brother there to watch things while he's out. But his death, and he went to it because his sons were too young. But it should be when they grow up. So Duryodhana is there by others' means, not by his own accomplishments. He hasn't conquered the earth. He hasn't done these things. Accompanied by Daumya, the Pandavas continued on their journey to Panchala. Right? So that he's accepted to be their priest, and he travels with them. But as I said, he walks in the front. Right? So he'll be in the front, then there'll be some of the Pandavas, then Kunti, and then the other brothers, like that. And so like that, that's how they'll travel. So that ends that. Now they have a guru. So now the next part of the story will be Draupadi Swayamvar. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Prema.